That's better. It's really throwing me off. You wearing your cap the right way around.
You what, sorry, Jay?
It's really throwing me off. You wearing your cap the right way around. Feel better now.
Fucking hell. When you take it off, the light reflects on me and you can see me. It's much better.
Oh. Hello. No, I'm sat with our guest this week, so it's a bit different to normal.
Yes.
He's been a great friend of mine for 15 years. I've lived with him twice. He's been there for me no matter what, and he's an absolute legend. I'm going to let Jamie introduce properly, but I just wanted to get that out there, that I am currently sat at 2 meters apart, of course, at 2 meters apart, to coincide with COVID laws. But yes, this man is an absolute legend in my eyes, and I can't stress enough how much I love him, and he's like a surrogate father to me.
Oh, thank you very much.
No. But yes, Barfighting's here on the show today. We've got a man who is so damn entertaining and so good at his show, Heads Up Radio, that he's played all around the world. And what is even more impressive to me is the fact he's a brummie. Welcome to the show, Mr. Jaspa Barrott.
Hey. Thank you very much. Thank you. Happy to be here.
How the devil are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you. How's everything with you?
I'm good. It's one of them mad days because I've got to run off to work in about an hour, so it's one of them.
Hooray! Night shifts for Jamie!
Woo!
Oh, mine are all night shifts.
Yes, there is. Bless his little fucking face. Look at him.
No.
I don't know no one can see this. I apologise. People will be listening to this. It's me ramble on bollocks as usual. But, yeah, it's good. So, Mr. Barrett, how has lockdown treated you? Have you taught yourself anything new? Have you been doing anything with your time?
To be honest, lockdown hasn't really been any difference for me other than the lack of live music. Everything else really, work's been the same. I guard a site, and even when there's nobody on the site, obviously the buildings have to be looked after. So yeah, night shifts for me. Nothing's changed really. Shopping's difficult, obviously, because you had to start off with there was all that mentalness about getting into shops, and
all the toilet roll for me. All of the toilet roll.
Yeah, yeah. So we had to keep borrowing Tom's toilet roll. Nothing was really any different.
That's good. It's good. It's good to hear some people weren't that affected, because obviously other people it did affect quite bad. So it's good to know some people went unaffected, really.
Yeah, I do. I feel for the people that had it really bad, and I know a lot of people that are still finding it difficult, and people that have lost their jobs, and people that still haven't got back to their jobs. Tom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I realise we've been very lucky here. As for the radio, obviously, there's not a huge amount of new music because people aren't being able to get out and create it.
That was going to be my next question too. I was going to say, like, has it affected the show? Obviously, I don't know, radio is not going to go anywhere during all this, but with stuff that's sent in and whatnot that you play.
A little bit more spurious at the moment. We are still getting it, and there's a lot of people that are still able to make it because they use home computers and the home software to record it. So from that point of view, any band where all the members can record for themselves, it's not quite as difficult because they can send the stuff off. It can all get processed by one person, whichever one of them is more skilled at mixing, to be honest. So it can be done. It's just obviously more difficult if you don't have that means to do it.
So with Heads Up Radio, how many stations does your show play on?
At the moment, it's 6. I've just lost 2. But as one goes, and they're just replaced by another one. So it's been 6 for about 4 years now. Just at the moment, it's 4 for the 4 long-standing ones, and then two fairly new ones.
How come you lost 2 then? Was that just because a new show came in, or they wanted to change it up? Or?
One of them's gone off air completely.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what happened. It was one of the American stations. Somebody mentioned that the show wasn't being played, I wasn't having any messages answered. The whole site was unavailable, and I couldn't get hold of the guy on Facebook. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. With the second one, there's a station in Scotland. The person that introduced me to the station left, and then he obviously introduced three of us. There was me and two other shows, and although the guys in the station said that that was fine as long as we kept sending the show, they stopped playing the shows and stopped contacting us. So although the station's still running, they're just not playing our shows.
So obviously, you said America and was Scotland. What other countries do you go out in?
Well, it's American and the UK that actually play the show, but obviously with it being internet based, you can listen to it anywhere.
Okay. And are they all rock radio stations, or is there like a mix?
No, they're not all rock. We have 4 of them are dedicated rock stations. The new one is a complete mix, and there's one that's, I think it's based in Scotland and in Cornwall. the two are based at the opposite ends of the country, but they both have access to the servers, and they can both get in and do live shows and change the music on the rotations and all that sort of stuff. So basically, it does come from both places. They do a huge mix of different shows.
Are you aiming to take over Australia next?
Funnily enough, we get played quite a lot in Australia.
Do you?
I've got about 6 or 7 very popular Australian bands on the show, and they promote very heavily. So as soon as I tag them into a playlist, it's all around there. All their fans get to hear about it. I got 2 promoters from Australia that I send the playlists off to, and when their artists are on, they promote it quite heavily as well.
That's amazing.
That's really cool.
It's good stuff. Got a couple of Romanian bands promote very heavily. Obviously, there's some bands that don't promote so heavily, but most of them will share the posters, or something like, that, or put a post up saying we're getting played on such and such. But I find it easier especially for the bands, if they just share the post that I put up, because all the bands are tagged into it. So anybody that's interested, they say, "Oh, we've been played on this show," they can click on that. Comes up, and in the comments, there's a running order of all the bands that are being played. And basically, what we say at the beginning of the show is, if you want to get in touch with the band, or you want to read more about the band, just right-click on it, open it in a new tab. You can read all about the band, close it down, you're back to the poster, ready to start again. Just pick the next band you want to go and check. So the idea is to make it easier for the listener to actually go straight in, find the band, because obviously some of the band names are very difficult to just put up as their name on Facebook. So you'll get all sorts of different names that they've had to use. So if there's a link to go straight to that, you don't have to put them. A lot of them will use their band name and then official or Rock Band UK or something like that. And if you don't type that whole thing in, there's about 6 or 7 bands with the same name. You're like, which one's the one I'm looking for?
I suppose that is a problem these days, because there's that many bands, especially unsigned bands out there, who have the same bloody name.
Yeah.
We've noticed it, like one of our shows on USUC with What's the Difference? They thought, oh, it's a great name. And then they decided to Google it and they went, oh, there's about 500 podcasts with the name What's the Difference? So I suppose it is something that does happen. So obviously, as we said at the start, you grew up in Birmingham, as all the best people do. So whereabouts did you grow up?
I was born in Aston, but we moved to Small Heath at about 6 or 7. We moved to Small Heath, and I stayed there right up until I left home. Went into the Air Force at 17 and a half, and moved from Small Heath to there. And then the Air Force became my parents and my home, and that was it then.
No one can blame you for trying to run away from Small Heath as quick as you could leave home. It's fine.
I didn't go back there, but I didn't stop the car anyway.
I don't blame you whatsoever. So, what?
Where I lived, and I was just going to drive past and go, that was it.
I've done that before. I went through Moseley once, and I was like, well, yeah, I live there. But let's keep going. So, what made you get into radio?
Oh, how long have we got for this?
As long as you need.
Excellent. Okay. Before we even started this, I have to go back to the job I had previously. Working in West Bromwich with a guy that bought and sold electronic equipment, basically disco speakers and things like that. And he'd buy them in, generally buy B-grade stuff in from China, the big pallet loads. And myself and his other technician used to take them into the workshop, test them, repair them if we could, if they needed it, and then he'd sell them on. So we were doing that. One of his customers was after a flight case, and he'd got a couple of young guys on who were still at school that were in charge of picking and packing and such like. And they took the order that this girl phoned in for the flight case. She said, yeah, okay, we get it to you. And it turned out that we didn't have any and we couldn't get any. So instead of phoning back and saying, look, I'm sorry, we made a mistake, we can't get you this flight case, is there anything else we can get for you? They just left her hanging. She was like, okay, where's my flight case? And I ended up being the complaints department, I don't know, the other technician was a bit rough and ready, and they wouldn't let him answer the phone. So basically, they used to pass everyone on to me because I'm not that I had the best phone manner, but this knack of being able to calm people down, which is, insecurity is not a bad trait, to be honest. But it worked well with customer service as well. So she phoned up and she was livid. But where's my flight case, all this sort of stuff? And I ended up having to take the phone and have a chat to her. We got talking and we got on really well. Strangely enough, turns out that she's a singer, and we're still in contact now. A good friend of the wife's as well, strangely enough. And she was doing a competition, basically. That was a sort of unsigned version of Britain's Got Talent, and the prize was that you get to host a radio show. And she won this, and the radio show turned out, the station turned out to be like a shed in London somewhere. There was a mixing desk and a microphone, and that was it. There's no headphones, no nothing. So her first show, we basically had to listen to and message her on Facebook saying, yeah, you need to turn the mic up, you need to turn the music down, this, that, and the other. And after about 5 shows, even at the 4th show, she turned up and there were people working in it, and there was sawing and banging and all sorts of stuff going on. She said, basically, I can't do this anymore, this is ridiculous. So the people that organised the competition got back to her and said, look, we like what you've been doing, and we realise that this radio station is actually quite a shite. How about if we gave you the servers and the bandwidth and everything, how about you do your own radio station? And she said, well, I could give that a go. So she started MTM Radio, which was Max in the Mix radio, and phoned up and said, look, I've been asked to do this radio station. Would you do a rock show for me? I said, yeah, of course I would. And put the phone down. And I thought, how the bloody hell am I supposed to do a rock show? I had no equipment. I got nothing. I got the computer and that was it. So I ended up having to try and rig a mixer and a microphone and all sorts of stuff to this computer. I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. I ended up buying a fairly cheap at the time recording program, which I've upgraded and has become my absolute go-to for everything at the moment. And it started from there. I started off, I was having to play a mixture of old rocks, classic staple tunes and things like that, before I built up a decent enough amount of music where I could just take it to completely unsigned music. And then I went to do just unsigned for a few years, and it was heads up unsigned for a while. And then I realised that it's hard to call music unsigned if a band have their own label. If the band have become their own label and then they're doing all their own stuff, they put the music out under that label, and then you get the pedantics on there saying, "Aren't these guys signed to such and such?" You know, oh, hang on, I'll check, and you check it. Yeah, it's their label. The label begins. It belongs to the band. Nobody else uses it. It's just the name that they record under. So I took the unsigned bit off, and I still don't play mainstream stuff. So there's nothing by big name bands like Metallica and people like that. It is all basically just underground stuff.
It's good though, because in modern day, it's not easy for, I say unsigned, independent we'll use, bands to get played. Because, as I say, radio isn't what it used to be. No. MTV is not what it used to be. So it's good there's people like yourself out there who are willing to give these people a chance, to be fair.
And there are lots of people, because now it's so easy to do. The mixing software you can pick up for nothing. There's various programs where you can just talk for a bit, put some music in, talk for a bit more. Even if a lot of them now don't even talk, they just throw the songs in, and that's it. I've never really been a fan of that, especially with what you're saying, independent music, because it's not something that you'd instantly recognise. A lot of people would listen to it and go, "I quite like that. I had no idea who it was." So,
yeah.
That's not really doing any good for your artists. So my show, they always get the introduction before and again afterwards to say who it was in case you picked it up halfway through. But I have to make sure that each song is introduced before and after the record, so you can't really miss who it was or what it was.
That's really good though. Because, like I said, a lot of people don't do. There's not many places that do this sort of things for these sort of bands anymore.
I'm quite surprised that they allow people to do shows that don't talk.
It does surprise me.
It's really because, like you said, obviously they're not going to know who it is. If they really like something, they're like, "Well, I have absolutely no idea who this is." So that's a bit shit on the bands that are on that radio station, because they're getting played, but they won't pick anybody up because no one knows who it is.
Yeah. It's not like you can get hold of the DJ and say, "What was that one?" Because he went, Joe, Yeah, it's not clever. I don't understand why he would do it, but people do, and people listen to it. So it must be it must be doing something.
It's all on people's preference, isn't it? Because I'm sure there is people out there that go, "I don't want to listen to this guy talk bollocks. Just play the music."
I can understand that. I don't like listening to me talk bollocks either.
So, where did your love for rock music come from? Is it parents, friends, just something you picked up?
No, right from when I was a youngster, really, back in the 70s with glam rock. Started listening to bands like Slade and the Sweets and things like that, and it came from there. And I sort of backed out of the rock scene in the 80s. I went very electronic. So Gary Newman came along and it blew me away completely. I was like, "Look, I can identify with that. Why have I never heard this before?" And obviously because it had not been there before. But I sort of abandoned everything and went down that route with the electronics, Depeche Mode and Gary Newman and all that sort of thing. And pushed rock out of the scene it was right on the back burners for a long time. And then, I don't know, probably towards, maybe with the advent of new metal and grunge and things like that, started to come back to it. And then when I was offered the show, I was like, right, I've got to do some research now. There's a lot of stuff I've missed. And to be honest, I still don't listen to mainstream rock music anymore, which is because I'll play stuff and someone will say, "Oh, that sounds very much like such and such." We're like, "Oh, does it?" I've not listened to them. It's odd because people are going, "Oh yeah, you play all this rock on your show and everything. You must like such and such." I'm like,
Yes.
I don't know them. But I learned a long time ago not to do that, because if you just go, "Oh yeah, of course they're brilliant," and then they start reeling off all this stuff, expecting you to know what they're talking about. And I just flounder and I go, "Oh no, yeah, of course." Mm.
That album they brought out, track 4, wonderful. It came out in a year.
Yeah, but then there was this thing on it, the guitar. That bloke did that guitar thing. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Yeah, so I just tell people now I don't listen to mainstream rock. I only listen to people that can't afford to produce extremely loud music.
So you said you got brought back into it during like the early 2000s and new metal and stuff like that. What was it that brought you back in? Was it a certain artist or?
People like Rage Against the Machine, Limp Bizkit, all that sort of stuff. Quite liked a bit of Manson, but I didn't really get back into it as well as I had been before. So I would listen to stuff and go, "Yeah, I quite like that," but I wouldn't go out like when I was young and I'd hear a song and then I'd just go and buy an album because of the song. I got loads and loads of shite albums like that. And I was just like, "Well, that's got a good song on it." Well, okay.
I suppose it was the difference back then, wasn't it? Because you heard one good song, you're like, "Oh, the rest of the album's bound to be this good."
Yeah. I bought Extreme's Pornograffiti.
One of my favourite albums of all time.
On the strength of More Than Words.
Yeah.
I was like, "Jesus Christ, what's all this?"
I love it when that happens and people are like, "I love that band. I love that song." Not which song? More Than Words. Have you heard the rest of the album? No, I didn't think you had.
Yeah. Well, imagine the amount of like old age women that bought it on the strength of that song. What the fuck is that?
It's like when Disturbed released The Sound of Silence the previous year, and I was like, how many people went and brought that album thinking every song was going to be like this?
To be honest, quite a few of them were fairly much like that. But the earlier stuff, yeah, I'll get some of their back stuff. The Sickness one, that sounds right. I'll get that.
Oh, this song sounds like about his mother abusing him. That's just what we want to listen to.
What's that, mother? Oh, shit.
Oh, I love it. So, obviously, we said Heads Up Radio gives focus on the limelight onto independent bands. So, what bands that you've discovered and helped stick out? Is there anyone that you're like, these are actually so good, I'm going to get their albums for myself?
There are a few. Fury from Worcester, awesome band.
I know of them, yeah.
Highly into them. A band from Liverpool called Rageboy Wolves. Now, Rageboy Wolves is difficult because there's about 8 bands called Rageboy Wolves. You need to get the right one.
I was about to say I've heard that name recently, but I'm wondering if it is even the same band now. You said that.
Possibly not. The band that I play, if you're looking for them on Facebook, it's UKRBW. So you don't even type Rageboy Wolves in. Otherwise, all these, you get 6 or 7 tags come up and you're like, crap, which one is it? But it isn't any of them. I've spent all this week tagging a band in, and it turns out I've been tagging the wrong one. It's like, oh, crap.
Who was that?
I'll have to look that up, to be honest. This week's show, actually. Killers and Kings.
Killers and Kings.
Yeah, they're called Killers and Kings. And the track that I played is quite a bluesy one. It was really. They do a variety of like rock, hard rock, and bluesy stuff. It's not heavy metal. It's not screamy, shouty. But yeah, there's about 4 or 5 bands that come up when you tag Killers and Kings. And I picked the one that I thought was the right one at the beginning of the week, and I've been tagging that one into all the shows. And when I checked up on it yesterday, when I was doing the tags, I thought, well, that's not the same band. So I tagged them into today's, thinking, well, they're bound to get the general idea, seeing as there's like 4 or 5 posters already, so they must know they've been played a few times. But yeah, something you have to be careful of. It's one of those minefields. Yeah.
I love the idea of these guys just setting on this band name and then looking it up and going, there's about 6 of us. Do you know what? I'm not thinking of another one. Fuck it.
I'll just add some bits on the end of the tag. It'll be fine.
Think of.
Yeah.
It must drive you mad, though. I wonder how many band names they went through before they went, do you know what? I'm sick of this. Everyone's fucking taken. Let's just...
I'll just use the first one I thought of and look at UK or metal or...
If we make it, I'll copyright it.
Yeah. Yeah, I did have that issue with a band in Birmingham called Wraith. Again, another band that I highly recommend. And I used to introduce them as the Mighty Wraith all the time. And then an old 70s band called Wraith got back together. They've been defunct for like 25 years. They decided to get back together and release another record, and then said, they've stolen our name. It's a name that you haven't used for 25 years. But because they'd all still been in the music industry, they're all still recording and such like. They got cash behind them, and they threatened them with solicitors and all sorts. So they've changed their name to the Mighty Wraith now. It's great.
Oh, there you go.
I'll pick your name for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. It's the only time I've ever known that to happen, because normally the band that have the name at the time, if you come in and contest it, will stick with it. So if you were that name 25 years ago, normally people just say, well, you know, you did give it up. But yeah, these guys carried on. They carried on using it, and they got quite heavy over it.
That just seems mad. There we go. So, have any of the bands that you've helped give exposure to gone on to do like real big things?
Yeah, there's a band called Stone Broken. Again, fairly local to the Birmingham area. In fact, yeah, they're from Walsall. They were signed to a label who were part of EMI.
So, nice.
So they've not done too bad. Well, their early stuff was a little bit like Nickelback stuff.
Oh.
You know, easy listening, slightly rocky. But yeah, the newer stuff's obviously they've got some backing behind them. It's still it's the same style of music, but it's moved a little bit further away from the Nickelback style, and more towards them having their own identity. But yeah, they're just about to work on their second or third album now. I think what I thought was their first album was just like a quite a long EP, because I think a lot of that went into their first album. But yeah, Sony EMI got behind them, and they're doing quite well for themselves.
Fair play. So where do you find these bands? Do they approach you? Do you approach them? Or?
There's a lot of promoters on Facebook. Generally, my bands come from that. So promoters will send stuff to me. You basically register with them and say, I'm quite interested in getting new music from these unsigned independent bands. And they're quite happy to go, right, okay, well, we'll send you as much as I've got. Loads of it gets sifted through. There's a lot of content that I don't get on with, so I don't play it. But I can be sent up to 45, 50 songs a week.
Wow.
From promoters. There's other people that do basically Facebook advertising for them. So there's Facebook companies there's one called Metallum Subterra, basically underground metal, and they review videos and such like from bands. They send them in, they put them on Facebook, they do a review. And I check a lot of that stuff, and I've had quite a few of the bands that they've reviewed. And then I get in touch with the band on Facebook and say, look, this is what I do. If you're interested in having your music played, being part of the Heads Up family, send music to here, MP3s, and I'll let you know when it's being played. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I'm having a phone call. Oh, mate, can I call you back in about 10? Yeah, I'll give you a shout back in a minute.
So unprofessional. So unprofessional.
Well, that was work. So God knows what they want. I'm not on duty tonight.
So obviously, saying like the Facebook advertiser, does live music play a big part into it? Do you like go to festivals and gigs and then approach bands afterwards?
Yes, yeah. That's how I started off doing this. I used to go and watch bands that I knew. A lot of the early bands were support bands for a Metallica tribute band, because I had friends that did this Metallica tribute, and we used to go and watch them. And then if the support bands were any good, I'd have a chat with them after the show, get music off them like that. And then you look to see who they're supporting or who they're playing with, and you check them out. And a lot of the times they'll say, oh yeah, get in touch with this promotions agency, they're dealing with us. And then you build it up from that, and then the promoters send you different bands, and yeah, it snowballed quite quickly. Once people realise that you'll play their music, all of a sudden they're your best mates.
I suppose if you're giving their bands exposure,
yeah.
I guess with lockdown, that's really no live music at the moment. So obviously, you're not getting that sort of clientele in, just because there's no fucking live music at the moment.
Yeah, there's very little being actually produced at the moment. Yeah.
Shit.
Fortunately, all the bands that send music stay on file. I've got a huge file on the computer of all the music that I've played, and I keep all the albums and all the CDs and all the EPKs that are sent. So I've got all that to fall back on. So if a band hasn't released anything in the last couple of months, they'll still get played. I'll play their older stuff. And the beauty of the mixer that I use is that I can actually use stuff from Spotify and YouTube and things like that, and put them straight into the show from there. So that'll put it straight into the recordings.
So how long?
Sorry, Jamie. How do you decide who you're going to play on the show? How do you decide who's going on what week?
Literally 90% of it goes by singles that have been released.
Okay.
So the bands, I tend to use the same bands. When I introduce a band onto the show, I pick 4 new bands a week, and that's sort of almost personal preference. I'll get all these bands in, and I think, well, I want to do a loud show this week, so I'll pick 4 loud bands, or I'll pick 3 loud bands and something that'll counterpoint that. And then they get introduced during the show. And then the rest of the show is by people that I've already got in the folder that I'll put in as and when. And when they release new singles, 90% of the time that will go in on the week of release or the week that I get it. Anything other than that, it's just basically I'll just go through and pick a band and go, I haven't played them for a while. I'll put those in, see what they're doing on Facebook. Sometimes I'll get them and then go, oh, sorry guys, we've closed the band down. Financial things, had a problem with some of the band members, and I lose them. So, I don't play them anymore. There's not much point in playing new music if the band's not still around. But I do tend to keep the albums and such like. So even when the band's defunct, I'll keep their music.
So I meant to ask her, how long have you been doing Heads Up Radio? I know you said it happened, but I can't be saying when it was.
10 or 11 years now.
10 or 11 years. Has much changed, since you started to, now? Did you used to get sent CDs and now it's files and stuff like that? Has it changed in the times?
Yeah, it has changed hugely. The whole thing has changed. I mean, 90% of the music I get now is MP3 files, and they'll come from Dropbox or somebody will just send them. Very rarely now do I get CDs. Occasionally, a band will send me an album through the post or something like that. Occasionally, I'll go to a gig and I'll buy one from them, at the gig. But most of the time, they'll just forward the whole album as MP3s. Makes things quite a lot easier, to be honest.
I suppose it means more of their stuff's going to get played the more they give you, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I tend to, if I have a band that I've been playing on a regular basis, quite a lot of the time, if they've got a single out, I'll play that when it comes out. But in the following weeks, I'll just introduce a different song off the album. And say, right, you can hear the new single on their Facebook page at any time. This is something else from the album that I think you should be listening to, or at least you should be able to hear. Hopefully, it'll give you the impetus to go and buy the album, or at least listen to it. So I'll play a different track. But they're all sort of hand-picked. If I do that, I could go through an album and go, yeah, that's okay, it's okay. Apart from one that I finished this week's show off with, because I got to the end of the show and I thought, oh crap, I've only got about a minute and a half left, and I've got to try and fill that with a song. So I went through all the stuff that I'd got, all the bands that I knew did short songs, and found one. I thought, I'll bung that in. Fortunately, all the times that the show goes out are pretty much after the watershed, because I listened back to it afterwards, and it's just blatant swearing almost. Like, It's so bad on the rock stations; they don't mind it so much. But the two other stations that have a mixture of everything, that can go a bit iffy.
Fuck, shit, bollocks, wank.
It is. It's actually called Scum of the Earth.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Amazing. Tom, did you have any other questions? I've gone through mine.
Not I could think of, but it's been an unbelievable experience that I've thoroughly enjoyed.
That's been great. I loved it.
It's been good fun. So where can people find your station?
Basically, if they come to my Facebook page, each station has its own show poster. So every day I will put a new poster up with the running order and a link to that station where they can hear it. Sundays, there's always a poster with all the stations listed on it, all the people, all the bands in the comments. And then I do a birthday section as well, where I'll just read out all my Facebook friends that have got birthdays, and they're all tagged in it as well. So it's a bit of a nightmare when you got like 50, 60 people to tag. and then I'm on my way to work and my phone starts pinging around and saying, "Oh, thanks for the shout out." Oh, Jesus Christ.
Why did it have to be so nice?
Yeah, shouldn't do that. But then the whole idea behind that is maybe someone will go, "Oh, I'll get a mention on the show. I'll have a listen." You know, it might work, it might not. I don't know. I don't do listener figures because I don't have the servers that the show's broadcast from. Basically, the stations wouldn't know, but I've never bothered to ask.
That's wonderful. So what day does the show go out on?
All of them apart from the weekend.
Oh, wicked. That's nice.
It now goes out Monday to Friday. Although Thursdays is Thursday midnight, so in America that's sort of mid-afternoon, early evening, depending on where about in America. But I suppose it still counts as Thursday somewhere.
Wonderful. So basically just get everyone to look up Jaspa Barrott on Facebook, look up Heads Up Radio, and Monday to Friday.
Heads Up, it should come up with my name somewhere.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on, mate. It's really good fun.
Been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yes,
thank you very much.
I've loved it so thoroughly.
Oh.
Find all this great content and more at the You Suck Podcast Network.